to my channel and to part 3 of this video series of using science to predict the Tony Awards. Inspired by Ryan Castleman and his kind of Oscar predictions with doing water and points and such like that, I've made my own for the Tony Awards, which I explain my little process of everything in part 1, so you can go ahead and check that out and then come back here and see exactly how this all works. So this is the big one. When we're talking about the shows, who's gonna win, who's gonna lose, who's gonna come out on top as the runaway win, that is gonna be focusing for this video today. So we are going to be doing musical revival, play revival, best play, and best musical to see who will come out on top. Is it going to be close, or is one show that has been talked about all season going to take the cake and just run away with it? Now, the first category we'll be getting with, like I said, is going to be musical revival. And I know that there was a lot of drama about why Chess is not here, but because of the lack of eligible shows, you could only really get that 4th nomination for Chess if people really pushed for it, and I guess the nominating committee just didn't really push for it, so that's why there was only 3 here. Out of the possible 5 that could have been eligible, not pictured here is also Mamma Mia, and like I said, Chess. But those that did walk away with the nominations are Cats, the Jellicle Ball, Ragtime, and the Rocky Horror Show. All of which I've heard nothing but fantastic things about. I think that this was a very good year and a very good nomination cycle for each of these 3 revivals. I do think that they all are deserving of this win, whoever it may be, because they either celebrate joy or just fun and camp, or are just a classic that has been said to be some of the best scores in musical theater. And so I think this is a really, really great category this year. But is it obvious who's going to win? Let's use science to find out. Again, we're going to be looking at the 3 major awards bodies. That is the Outer Critics Circle, the Drama Desk Awards, and the Drama League Awards. Everyone will be given a point for their nomination and an additional point if they win that category. Also, if a category was eligible for Olivier or a Pulitzer, those will be taken into consideration as well. But first, let's do these 3. We don't have to worry about Oliviers or Pulitzers or anything, because these are revivals, and the revivals didn't really come from London. They didn't really make their way over. The first category are the Outer Critics Circles, and only one of these shows got a nomination for that, and that was Ragtime, which Ragtime did go on to win. Now, even though there were only 3 eligible shows by Tony standards, a lot of these awards are shared between the Broadway and off-Broadway seasons. It's mostly what opened in New York City that we are looking at. So even though there's 3 shows, not all of them are going to see nominations, because I've heard really great things about like The Baker's Wife or about the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. So a lot of those were also up for these same categories. These awards bodies don't really like to discriminate against Broadway versus off-Broadway, when really the only biggest between the 2 that makes a difference of why we have separate categories is the amount of seats in the. Next is the Drama Desk Awards, and 2 out of these 3 shows ended up getting nominations, and one of them was Ragtime, and the other one was the Rocky Horror Show. And one of them did end up winning, and that was the production of Ragtime. And finally, we have the Drama League nominations, which actually all 3 shows ended up getting a Drama League nomination. So that was Cats, the Jellicle Ball, Ragtime, and the Rocky Horror Show. But only one ended up winning that award, and that was given to Ragtime. And looking at these points distributed with 1 point, 2 points, and the winner of Ragtime being 6 points, this doesn't surprise me. Ever since this started at Encores like a year or 2 ago, I've heard nothing but praise for this show. Again, most people walk away feeling inspired, feeling good, or just the fact that they're able to think about themselves and what it means to come to this country and follow the American dream. And you see that through the perspectives of the three main characters and their families. It doesn't surprise me that a show like this is able to make the impact that it does. While I love the fact that two shows that are a little bit different and a little bit weird are also getting love and praise as well. I never liked Cats. Well, okay, I love the movie because I think it's terrible, but I was never really a fan of Cats and the premise of it. I saw it in like 10th grade and I didn't get it. I've actually never seen Rocky Horror, whether it's the movie or the show itself. I know, I'm terrible. But from what has come out of these two shows has been nothing but joy, it seems like. They're weird, they're different, they're not what you would expect to be on Broadway, whereas something like Ragtime is. And even though this production is great, and as we can see from here, it still is really nice to know that shows like this are getting recognition as well. I do think Ragtime is going to be the big winner. I mean, as we saw in the last video, it's racking up a lot of acting nominations and wins as well. So it doesn't surprise me that this will walk away with the Best Revival Musical Tony Award. So now we'll move on to play revivals. All right, so these are our 5 nominees for Best Revival of a Play. We have Becky Shaw, Death of a Salesman, Every Brilliant Thing, Fallen Angels, and Oedipus. Honestly, I've heard amazing things about all of these productions. I think Daniel Radcliffe just ended his run in Every Brilliant Thing, but across the board, I've heard fantastic things, especially about like Becky Shaw. I heard this is some of the best writing in a play people have ever seen. I've heard great things about the leads of Kelly O'Hara and Rose Byrne in Fallen Angels, so I really think that this is a fascinating category. So let's start with the Outer Critics Circle, and we had 3 nominations across the board. We had one for Becky Shaw. We had another nomination for Death of a Salesman, and another nomination for Oedipus. However, I do want to point out this nomination for Oedipus. It was technically in the new play category. I don't know why, but I'm still going to count it, even though it's not in the revival. I think getting a nomination in general, I think is because of this voting body being so small, still getting your name out there, still putting it out there. So that's why I'm still going to give this point over to Oedipus. The Outer Critics Circle winner was Death of a Salesman. Next, we had the Drama Desk Awards, and out of these nominations, there were 2 of the shows nominated. That was, again, going to be Becky Shaw and Death of a Salesman. And the winner for this category was Death of a Salesman. Then we had the Drama League nominations, which there were 4 of them. We had one for Becky Shaw. We had another for Death of a Salesman. We had one for Every Brilliant Thing, and for Fallen Angels. And our winner for the Drama League Award for Best Revival of a Play did end up going to Death of a Salesman. Now, normally, I would be done here, but we actually do have one additional point to give out, and that is going to be to Oedipus, as Oedipus did win the Olivier Award for Best Revival of a Play. So they have an additional point there. Total point count across the board, as you can tell, is 3 points for Becky Shaw, 6 points for Death of a Salesman, 1 point each for Fallen Angel and for Every Brilliant Thing, and then 2 points for Oedipus. Again, kind of like with the director category, this doesn't surprise me because I've heard nothing but amazing things about this Death of a Salesman production. Also, I mean, it's Death of a Salesman. My fiance and I listened to it on audiobook on the way back from a trip once, as we were coming back from visiting family in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and we loved this. I thought it was fantastic, even just listening to it, and so I definitely want to see Death of a Salesman on display on stage. So it doesn't surprise me, especially when you have the greats of Laurie Metcalf and Nathan Lane. However, I do know that this is produced by Scott Rudin, which I am not a fan of. So it pains me that a production like this is being produced by such a terrible, terrible man. And so I do think, though, that Death of a Salesman is going to be the big winner for both this category and the directing category as well. But now we will redistribute and talk about Best New Play predictions. All right, let's take a look at Best Play. Or these are all like the new plays that opened up on Broadway. Like the musical category, there's not too many of them here, or not too many that were eligible, which is why we only have 4 nominations across the Balusters, Giant, Liberation, and Little Bear Ridge Road. Our first group, the Outer Critics Circle, had 3 nominations across these 4 that went to the Balusters, went to Giant, and went to Little Bear Ridge Road. And the Balusters ended up taking this home. Then we have the Drama Desk Awards, and there was only 1 nomination across these 4, and that was for the Balusters. And they also ended up winning the Drama Desk for Best Play. Then we have the Drama League, and 3 out of these 4 plays got nominations there, which was for the Balusters, Giant, and Liberation. But none of them won the Drama League. I can't remember off the top of my head which one did, but it was definitely an off-Broadway play or one that was just not nominated for any of these categories. It may have been Proof. I'm really surprised that Proof didn't get any type of nominations. Oh, that wouldn't have been new though, so never mind. But still, so normally this is where things would end, but there are a few more awards or points that I would like to distribute. The first is the Olivier Award, which ended up going to Giant. That won the Olivier in this past award season. And Liberation won the Pulitzer for Drama, and none of the others were nominated, so that gets another point as well. Now, I don't think this year this won the Pulitzer, so this is definitely going to win. Theory is going to work out like last year did with Oh Mary versus Purpose, because we can see that the Balusters definitely ended up on top with 5 points. Then Giant and Liberation both had 3. I don't know why my numbers didn't work out, but they both had 3 points. Little Bear Ridge Road only taking 1. I was shocked to see Little Bear Ridge Road show up on nomination morning. I think it's mostly here because of its playwright and how I've heard that it's actually a really good show, but it did close early and a lot of people did not want to go see it because, just like Death of a Salesman, it is being produced by Scott Rudin, so a lot of people did not want to go and support him and support this show. So I was kind of shocked when this did show up, and this is the only nomination for this play. It didn't get any acting nominations, directing nominations, set production, lighting, sound nominations. It got nothing. This is the only nomination, and that's really rare that you see that any type of show only gets nominated for Best Musical or Best Play or Best Revival of a Play and Musical and not get anything else. It does happen, but it's very rare. So I am kind of shocked to see that this is its only nomination and it's not nominated anywhere else. So that's why it doesn't really surprise me when it only ended up with 1 point for the Outer Critics Circle Award nominations. I have heard fantastic things about the Balusters, and it makes me definitely want to go and see it, or at least to read it. I know that the Drama Bookshop in New York City does offer this play for you to buy. I've been trying to dive into buying some more plays and musicals and reading them for fun, and it is a really good time. You can kind of picture everything happening in your head, especially because I've gotten ones of shows that I've already seen. See how long the Ballisters, or how much praise the Ballisters will get. It did extend its run. It was supposed to end a little bit before the Tonys, but now I believe it is extended through until the Tonys. So that just shows you that it's something that people want to see and have been going out to go see. So I think that the Ballisters, even though Liberation won the Pulitzer, I do think the Ballisters takes it home here. But last, but certainly not least, out of all of these categories, it is time for Best Musical. Of course, the one that you have all been waiting for, Best Musical. Now, there's been a lot of controversy this year about how, oh, this season of Broadway for new musicals has been so boring, it's been so dull, and I don't really like to look at it that way. Yes, there haven't been a whole lot of new musicals. That is obviously a fact. That's why we only have 4 nominations here and not 5 or 6, even if there was a tie. So there haven't been a lot of new musicals here. Actually, there's only 2 that were not nominated, and that was Beaches, which recently just closed early, and The Queen of Versailles, which opened back in October, but also closed relatively early. They had a January closing date, and then eventually actually ended up closing in December. I think a lot of people just think of Broadway as just musicals, and I don't like to look at it like that. I mean, we had wonderful musical revivals, and we've also had amazing plays that have been on, things that people are talking about and going to see and being extended, but also with the off-Broadway season as well. A lot of these awards that, as I was doing research for, have been dominated by off-Broadway productions. And so when people say that there hasn't been a good Broadway season, I really don't think that they're looking at it from the full scope of things. They're just looking at it specifically from like this category. And even in this category too, there are amazing shows here. You want a simple rom-com that is fun, romping through New York, or a comedy play focusing on not just one of like a disaster, but playing on it with how the movie recreated it as well, with a cult classic film with some of the most spectacular things I've heard that they're able to do. And then with a beloved TV show that was basically made for the stage. So I don't understand where people come from when they say that this season was bad, because across this board and with the plays and off-Broadway, I really don't think that's the case. All right, so what are our nominations? So we have The Lost Boys, Schmigadoon, Titanic, and Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. Now, I've only seen one of these, and not even technically on Broadway. I've said many times before that I have seen Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York at the American Repertory Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I loved it. It is my favorite show. It is my personal pick for this category and for every category that it's in. So I want it to win, but is it going to? Does it have enough points across the board to be our winner? Let's find out. Starting, of course, with the Outer Critics Circle Awards, 3 out of these 4 shows ended up getting a nomination, and that was The Lost Boys, Schmigadoon, and Two Strangers. And one show did walk away with the win for the Outer Critics Circle, and that was the wonderful and fabulous Schmigadoon. The Drama Desk Awards, 2 out of these 4 shows ended up with nominations, and that was Schmigadoon and Two Strangers. With the winner overall in this category being, again, Schmigadoon. And then for the Drama League Awards, all of them actually ended up getting a nomination. So this is going to be another point for The Lost Boys, another point for Schmigadoon, the first point for Titanic, and another point for Two Strangers. But none of them ended up winning for this category. Now there is one more point to distribute that didn't fall under the three main categories, and that is for an Olivier win, which is actually going to go to Titanic, as it won the Olivier. I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before, for Best Entertaining Show. And I'm still going to count this, even though it's not in Best Musical, or like their categories for that, or I think it's Best New Musical, is how the Oliviers describe it as. But I'm still going to give the point here to Titanic because it did walk away with a win for its production as a whole. And so I think it is very much deserving of that Olivier point win. And there's going to be no other points. None of these won the Pulitzer for drama, and none of the other ones won an Olivier for the category. It does look like Schmigadoon is going to be our big winner of the season with 5 points, followed closely behind with Two Strangers with 3 points, and then 2 points each for Titanic and The Lost Boys. I do think that it's going to be closer between these two, while a lot of people think it's going to be closer between these two. This one mostly because of the spectacle of what they are able to do, but because I've heard a lot of negative things about the score and about the book, I think that will deter people. Just because People Can Fly doesn't mean that it deserves the win for Best Musical. And it doesn't surprise me that Schmigadoon is coming out on top here, because not only is it based on a beloved show, but it plays on the whole musical theater tropes. It makes fun of it, it points it out, but it also talks about the importance of it, and it focuses on those golden age musicals, which a lot of older people really enjoy. For example, I just went to go see The Music Man on tour at the Hanover Theater in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I thought it was fine. I can see where inspirations from new musicals are coming from and how they have built upon things like The Music Man, but it wasn't my favorite show I've ever seen. I think the book is weak. I'm not a big fan of the story or really the characters. I think they're fun, but there's nothing there for me, which I think a lot of Golden Age musical theater is, but also that's what Schmigadoon plays on. And Two Strangers, I really think this could be the underdog win, because not only is it a simple show that I think anyone can love, because it brings you those feelings back of 2000s and 2010s rom-coms. It's set in New York, it's in winter, it's romantic, it's cute, it's fun, it's modern day, and I think the references are really good for that. So I do think that Two Strangers could come up and take it from Schmigadoon. We saw that Schmigadoon took Best Book of a Musical, but Two Strangers took Best Score. And I think that could help elevate Two Strangers over a show like The Lost Boys. I don't think Titanic is going to win, even though these got the same amount of points. I do think this one is in last. But I've heard people are having a great time at the theater, so like, I can't complain. I will be okay if this wins, which I will be predicting this to win, because science. I will be okay if this one wins, because if that means that we get a season 3 of Schmigadoon, I want this to win. And then I want Apple TV Plus to realize that it is important, and then they can put, like, we help create a Tony-winning show, and then we can get season 3 of Schmigadoon. That is all I really have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this little series. I think in the comments or in the description below, I'll put my predictions based on science for not just the categories discussed in these last 3 videos, but for the remaining categories as well, like lighting design, sound design, production design, orchestrations, all things like that. I'll be using the same metrics, but I think it would just be a little too much to do all of those categories, as this was already a lot. But let me know if you guys will be watching the Tony Awards. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, as always, keep on gabbing.